Please be advised, if you have not seen the movie that is about to be reviewed in this video, stop this video right now, go and watch the movie and then come back, because there are going to be massive plot spoilers throughout the course of this video. Hey all, welcome back to the video vault. This is number 6 of the video vault. Thank you guys so much for checking out all my previous video vaults, which I will link in a playlist down there. I had a lot of fun doing the last one, which was the 1986 Transformers movie. It was good to sort of go back and relive some of my childhood a bit. And this week I've decided to jump forward 13 years to the magical year of 1999. A lot of really good memories from this year, like, final year of high school, spending a lot of my time hanging out with my buddies Ned and Blakey. Blakey unfortunately no longer with us. We just hang out and ride dirt bikes and watch movies on a weekend. And so I thought, why not go back to that good time and look at 1999's Sleepy Hollow, directed by Tim Burton and starring Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. Now, this is a loose adaptation of Washington Isaiah's 1820 short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The short story revolves around a school teacher named Ichabod Crane, who goes to the town of Sleepy Hollow, and we have, the legend of the Headless Horseman and everything like that. So, yeah, the film is loosely based on the short story. All the characters are the same, with one notable exception of Ichabod Crane is actually no longer a school teacher in this one. He is actually a police constable from New York City who comes to the small farming community of Sleepy Hollow to find out, all these mysterious beheadings that have been occurring in this small rural area. So we get a very Tim Burton-esque, like 17th century Gothic sort of look to it, and the costume design, the cinematography is just absolutely incredible throughout this whole movie. You actually feel like you're back in, I think it was 1799 or 1899. One of the two. 17, I think. No, I could be wrong. Probably wrong. But we have, the signing of a new will between Van Garrett and a Jonathan who is witnessed. We find out later on that Jonathan is Jonathan Masbeth, who becomes one of the victims of the Headless Horseman. And we find the plot behind all of this. So it's an intriguing movie to watch. It's, again, this is 1999, so this is when the horror genre is sort of getting a little bit this is where my tongue stops working, of a revival, thanks to Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then we had Species, and then we had the Blair Witch Project, which I'll do at some point, and all these really good movies were coming out in that period of time. So anyway, the father and son are traveling through open country, and they get chased down by the horsemen, and we get this really good visual of when the father is decapitated. We have the scarecrow with a pumpkin head, and you hear the of the blade, you know, cutting through, and you just see this blood splatter just go over the pumpkin. It looks really, really cool. I think what they used for like the blood scenes and that in this movie are perhaps a little bit too bright. They could have been, you know, the color of it could have been a little bit dialed back because it just looks fake. If you want to see a really, really good, you know, what blood pool looks like, have a look at Carrie. That looks sort of like more realistic. Even in Scream, when they use corn syrup, you know, the same thing they substituted for pig's blood in Carrie. But still, like, this movie's aged well. It's 21 years. It's 21 years old. This movie has aged so incredibly well. You would think, you know, the way that it's shot, I'm drawing a blank. I'm going to be editing out that chunk. It's just the way that it's shot, the film score from Danny Elfman. I almost said David Ellison for a second. And like even just the cast that has been assembled is absolutely incredible. As I said, you know, we've got Johnny Depp, we've got Christina Ricci, we've got Christopher Lee, we've got Michael Goff, we've got a extremely talented cast throughout this whole movie. It is absolutely incredible. So word has gotten to New York City about these slayings, and we see this radical constable Ichabod Crane, Johnny Depp, who's trying to convince Christopher Lee, who's the police chief. Like, you know, we've got these new scientific sort of techniques. This is all like, you know, the slight introduction of forensics and everything. I was like, no, we're like, you want to try them here? Go out to this small farming area of Sleepy Hollow. You know, 3 persons have been decapitated. So it was like, okay, there's a bit of a reluctance in Crane accepting the job, but he does anyway, and he goes to the town, and you know, it's sort of that stereotypical, in a little way, sort of like whenever you've seen a lot of like old Western movies from the 60s and 70s, and even some of the spaghetti Westerns, when you have, you know, this lone gunslinger rides into town, they board up and shut their windows and, you know, clear the streets and all of that because, like, oh, trouble's afoot. Sort of like superstition sort of sinks in a little bit. But still, so we get to the Tassel Van Garrett family house, which is, again, beautiful. It looks like it's something out of the 16th century. Again, even the set designs in this are absolutely incredible. There's a huge party that's in swing, and we get introduced to our other key characters in this story. We have Katrina Van Tassel, Christina Ricci, but then we also have Baltus Van Tassel, we have the Reverend Steenwick, we have the Magistrate Phillips, we have the town's doctor, and the notary, who are trying very, very hard to sell Ichabod on the idea of, you know, well, all these killings are actually, you know, they're done by a supernatural being, you know, the Headless Horseman that, you know, sort of comes from the grave and sort of kills at random. See, I'm using the quotation marks because at the minute that's sort of the way it sort of looks like it's at random, but eventually we find out that is not the case. So we get the whole backstory of the horseman, who is, you know, a Hessian who comes from Germany, who loved absolute carnage, and whenever he entered a battle was completely and utterly ferocious. Very well portrayed by Christopher Walken. Or should I say, well portrayed by Christopher Walken. probably very badly done. Glaving, very badly done, but like everyone knows and loves Christopher Walken. Like he's been in some really, really amazing movies. Like, you know, he's been in Pulp Fiction. He's been in, you know, Welcome to the Jungle. He's been in so many. There's just so many good movies that Christopher Walken has been in. They're just two off the top of my head. And so, of course, we see the backstory get played out. You know, he's murdering Carnage. Eventually, though, he gets taken out, decapitated by his own sword, and buried in a shallow grave. What could go wrong? 20 years sort of pass, like everything's peaceful, and all of a sudden these murders just sort of spark up out of nowhere. I really need to stop clicking because every time I do, I get a massive spike in the audio, and it's a pain to edit. It's a real pain to edit. So, Ichabod obviously is not convinced that, you know, this is the work of a supernatural being. He's like, no, this is someone who is of flesh and blood that is doing this. This is a person. This is not some, you know, malevolent spirit from beyond. This is an actual person. I'm going to find this person. They're going to be brought to justice. So we get introduced to more of the town, like the outskirts and everything, and we get a horseman attack. This is the Jonathan Masbeth character who has a feeling like the horseman is coming for him. And he's in a hide box with his rifle, just like, you know, come on out, you know, I'm gonna get you. You're not gonna get me, I'm gonna get you, sort of thing. Unfortunately, his attempts are in vain, and bye-bye Jonathan Masbeth. So we have the whole town at the funeral, and we, you know, get introduced to his son, just young Masbeth, as he's known throughout the movie. He doesn't have a first name or anything, it's just young Masbeth. And this is when the magistrate sort of drops a bit of a clue. It's like, you know, Masbeth wasn't actually the fourth victim, and he was the fifth. This is like, you know, the whole 5 victims in 4 graves. Like, there's a lot of confusion, and it's like, well, what are you talking about, 5 to 4? Like, okay, so the next day we're exhuming the graves. It's like 5 victims, 4 graves. We got, you know, Peter and, you know, the Van Garrett son. We have Jonathan Masbeth, and we have the widow Winship, who at the minute is sort of like, you know, an obscure sort of a random character that's been thrown into the mix, but we will find out later on that she's actually part of an integral plot. It's like, okay, it's like everything's the same except, you know, we've got hang on, there's a sword thrust in the widow's stomach. Like, what's happening here? So we go to the body's taken into the town hospital, where a primitive, I use this word loosely, autopsy takes place, and lo and behold, you know, the widow is with kind. She's with child. Then, like, the mystery rounds, well, you know, who's you know, with child, like, who's the father, and all of this. Again, we find out later on. So the hunt sort of begins for the Headless Horseman. There's not really trying to find as much information. Ichabod's trying to find as much information as possible. Sort of comes up with this little, writes down in his ledger, like, the ideas that he has so far. It's like, there seems to be a conspiracy here. 5 victims, 4 graves, and eventually, like, sort of, his last word is like basically thinking, it's like it points to something. Then it's like, we're going to make a list of everyone and just eliminate them one by one instead of the names. So he starts, you know, with Baltus Van Tassel, you know, who's the richest man in town. He goes down to he's walking around town. We see an argument between the doctor, the reverend, the notary, and the magistrate. Ichabod obviously thinking something's up. He's, he's a little bit cluey. So he decides, you know what, I'm going to follow this magistrate here to see what's going on. And pulls him up in a hayfield, just sort of outside the outskirts of town. They have a little bit of a discussion about what's going on, and, we get the whole, there never was a horseman, there never will be a horseman, and then, lo and behold, out of nowhere, here's a headless horseman. Holy hell, we didn't know. He was like, well, what? It's real. Oh my God. Ah! And obviously the magistrate gets decapitated. Again, I've got this bad habit of when I'm watching movies like this, especially if I'm watching them with either Ned or April, I will always say something always make some cheesy, corny pun like, oh, well, he picked a bad time to lose his head, didn't he? Oh, jeez. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, Ichabod seeing all this, he blacks out. And we get a little bit of a flashback. I like how they've incorporated the flashbacks in this movie. It's not just, there's a flashback, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, and now we jump back forward. No, there's reasoning as to why the flashbacks happen. They only occur for a start when Ichabod is conveniently passed out. Again, I've got to stop clicking. And they all, revolve around his upbringing, really. Like, he's, this innocent boy, his doting mother who is, murdered by a religiously fanatical father in a very torturous way. With first, we've got the spiked chair, I can't remember what that thing's called, and then the infamous Iron Maiden comes into play as well, and kind of scars Ichabod a little bit, both mentally and physically, because we've seen throughout the movie he has these little marks on his hand, and those results of putting his hands on the spikes when he's in shock from seeing his mother fall forward out of the Iron Maiden. So Ichabod comes to, he's like panicking like crazy, absolute hysterics, as you would be when you've seen something like this. And just, it's like, it was this, it was that, and it's like, we've got Boltus just saying, yes, we've told you, everybody told you what, what we have said was true. And he blacks out again. This is sort of where we start to get a little bit of a bit of a love story sort of thrown in between Ichabod and Katrina as well, which actually also, if you've read the original short story, is actually thrown in there, is actually referenced in there as well. So he's still trying to figure out, what's going on. So once he's gathered his wits and everything, we go down to the notary, and we find a MacGuffin. What is a MacGuffin, you're asking? Well, this is a very good question. Let me answer that. It is a plot device. It is basically a plot device. You may hear sometimes, if it's a magical plot device, it is referred to as a magic MacGuffin. Otherwise, if it's just a standard plot device, it's just a MacGuffin. This MacGuffin is the satchel of one Jonathan Masbeth, which contains the new last will and testament of Peter Van Garrett, leaving everything he had to not his son, but the widow Winship. Bum, bum, bum. So this is where this character comes into play. And there is also a marriage certificate that's found for the marriage of Van Garrett and Winship. And of course, the doctor knows about the unborn child because he's tended to the woman throughout the whole process. So the plot gets even thicker still. It's like, okay, this is when it's a murdering plot. It's like this person gets lopped off. Okay, then everything goes to this person. They get knocked off. It goes and so forth down to whoever is the sole survivor at the end and inherits everything. And so it's a plot for Agreed, pretty much. We have this huge gathering at the church after it's found, that the notary has hanged himself during the night because everything's sort of scared him that much. He's like, I can't deal with this anymore, and he hangs himself. So we get a bit of a fake out here because we've had a bit of a steamy affair sort of exposed between the wife, Mrs. Van Garrett, or Mrs. Van Tassel, and a stranger have been discovered having, a bit of a cordial affair, and she's gone and cut herself intentionally because, one have thrown a little bit of blood fetish for some reason, don't know why, but it's like, oh no, I'm gonna go get some wildflowers or something and get this patched up, it'll be fine. No, she's doing. Bolter's there saying, come on, we got to go to this meeting. Here comes the horseman with his sword unsheathed. Now we get the panic here of, oh my god, no, he's Bolter's just bolts. Bolter's bolts. Literally. That's a good name for an athletic sprinter. And coming in first is Bolter's bolts. So he's under the impression, the horseman's, killed his wife, killed Katrina's stepmother. And they all frolic to the church. And this is where Ichabod sort of gets a little bit of a discovery of something, because everyone's panicking, the horseman's coming, we're all under attack. But because, in these sorts of movies, a church is a lot like a graveyard. It is sacred ground, so nothing supernatural can pass. It is sacred ground. It's like the horseman throws his axe inside church grounds and it just disintegrates. We can get Ichabod's he cannot enter. He's trying to calm everybody down. It's you're safe. The horseman can't enter, but lo and behold, the horseman, even though without a head, he's a bit cluey, so he makes a bit of a harpoon from one of the fence posts, and we get a really, really cool, sick kill. This is when Boltus is in a panic, saying, there's a huge conspiracy here. It's we get a shot of Katrina looking over to Ichabod because, she's seen what was written down, and it's wow, maybe this is true. There is this sort of conspiracy happening, and of course, Boltus, he gets harpooned with a fence post that has been tied to the end of the rope and is just dragged out the window of the church. And it's very sort of graphic in a way because as he's being dragged along, we've got this post sticking out of his chest and it's just, you hear the gargling and everything. It's just panic, and then here comes Horsey and he's decapitated. So we got to find out eventually that whoever is controlling the horseman, this is sort of when it's realized, these killings aren't at random. These are in order. These are in a very specific order. And this is where we find out that whoever's controlling the horseman has his skull, is using his skull as a summoning device, which in a lot of witchcraft, I think, and especially voodoo cultures and that, they sometimes use skulls and that as a summoning agent. So we find out who it is. It is the stepmother, Van Tassel. She's the one who's been knocking off all these people so she can inherit the vast fortune when there's only one person left, which is Katrina. So she summons the horseman. We get an homage to the 1931 Frankenstein where they go into the windmill. You know, they escape through the roof. The horseman's chasing after them, and this is where we get the homage there, jumping for the sails, and Johnny Depp sort of drops the lantern, and we get the burning windmill, which is, if you've watched the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, is a very, very iconic scene right near the end of the movie. So we go straight down this huge chase between the horsemen and our three protagonists of a young Mazbeth. Again, we don't know it. It's never really uttered what his first name is. He's just known as young Mazbeth, Katrina, and of course Ichabod Crane. They reach the horseman's resting place, the Tree of the Dead, and stepmother Van Tassel is there. She's the one controlling the horseman. She still has the skull in her possession. Ichabod manages, after a tussle, to retrieve the skull. And just as Katrina is about to get decapitated, he gets the horseman's attention and returns the head. So we get this whole... It's a very graphic CGI sequence, but it's very well done because the realism in it is so incredible. The skull gets reattached, and then we just get this crazy sequence of muscles and tendons and ligaments and hair and eyes and everything else just like forming back in. And then we get the full reveal of the full Christopher Walken horseman, who then just jumps on his horse, picks up the stepmother who'd been controlling him the whole time, and they ride off together through the Tree of the Dead into hell. We get this really, really cool shot of when the stepmother's arm sort of drops down. It almost makes like a beckoning, just slow moving beckon, like, you know, come to me sort of thing. The case is solved. They go back to New York. It's winter time. It's just in time for a new century. And that is it for Sleepy Hollow. It is, in my view, a very underrated movie. Like, if you're a fan of the Tim Burton Gothic style of directing, you're gonna love it, because it's just absolutely incredible how detailed this movie is, from the set design to the costumes to the wigs that were used to the dialogue that was used throughout this movie. It is extremely well done. I strongly recommend Sleepy Hollow to anybody who has not seen it. Now, I know what some of you are going to be thinking. You're going to be thinking, oh, you know, so far he's done all movies he likes. You know, when's he going to do one that he doesn't? The answer: soon, very soon. Trust me. There's going to be reviews of movies that I absolutely despise because they stink. They're just terrible. It will be happening. Not every review is going to be, you know, wine and roses. Or in your case, beer and pizza. Or one of those delectable Fitzy burgers as well. So I had to have a bit of a chuckle. I was talking when I was listening to the latest Grey Wolf Pack Chat. Cheap plug for Grey Wolf. Hey, here's another one. You know, you can buy these shirts. I think they've got hoodies on pre-order. Go to their Facebook. Just go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/GreyWolfENT, and click the link, and you'll be able to order yourself a sweet, sweet hoodie. So there you go. Even a little plug for them as well. But you don't have to worry. Fitz, Ned, you don't have to worry about any surprise bleeps or anything in this one that are going to be too loud. I hope your pants didn't get too messed up, Fitz. I hope you weren't drinking hot coffee or whatever and it's just spilled everywhere. Don't send me the dry cleaning bill. But yeah, look, I've got to send a huge shout out, as always, to Ned and Fitz at Grey Wolf, because they're just absolutely big supporters of the Video Vault. And you know what? I agree with going back to the photo. Fitzy had a photo of a burger that he's put up. I'm ranting now. And there's a lot of like, oh, you know, that doesn't look right. It's like, no, well, the way he had it was like, you put the salad on the bottom, and then you put the patty and everything else on the top, because then you got the salad that acts as a barrier, so your bun doesn't get soggy and blah, blah, blah. Watch out for Fitz's cooking corner. I'm sure that'll be coming. And, oh yeah, trademark, what is it, bite density index? Yeah, trademark that. But anyway, thank you so much for checking out this edition of Herbz' Video Vault, and I shall see you next time around. Thanks for checking out this video, guys. If you like it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, you hit that subscribe, and you ding that notification cowbell. For any other reviews you want to look at, I will put links up here, and maybe one there. Also, the links to my socials will be down in the description box below, and I shall see you all next time.